I always thought that the wall that Israel erected between itself and the West Bank was to keep terrorists out who were coming in and murdering innocent people. But now I know that the wall is much more than that. The wall is creating within the West Bank dozens of enclaves, and in my mind it seems that the wall itself is one of the most important impediments to peace and a two-state solution. Anyway, just watch this 15-minute video and judge for yourself. Here goes.
Just look at the route of the wall and the picture definitely will become clearer. The border between Palestine and Israel, between the Palestinian territories and the Israeli territories, is 315 kilometers long. Meanwhile, the route of the wall is 670 kilometers. Definitely it is more than double the length. Why?
The district of Qalqilia is home to about 100,000 Palestinians and boasts some of the richest agricultural land in the West Bank. But Qalqilia has been walled in, so that Israel can annex the Israeli settlements around the district. Look at what's happened to the city and surrounding villages, how they've been choked, cut off from each other, Palestinian from Palestinian, caged in by surrounding walls and fences, separated from their livelihood, their land. The farmers of Qalqilia have become landless.
هذا الجدار برك من نص الأرض، قسم الأرض قسمين وكلع كل زيتون وخرب الأرض كلها.
الزيتون لما هم يكسروا فيه حامل والأولاد تحته في الشجرة ويعيطوا وإحنا نكون مشان الله ولا هذا رزقتنا. ما لناش إشي يعني هناك إلا هالقطعة.
אני אתן לך באות, תזהר دتوني يابا دتوني يابا يلا أزيكون يا أزيكين مش ليش تعال تعال اشتغل أزيكون دتوني إيش أزيكون
An olive tree takes between 7 to 10 years to bear a fruit. And the Israeli bulldozers uproot it and steal it in a minute. The tree for us as Palestinians is alive. We will keep planting and we will keep on living.
The wall, of course, does not stop in Qalqilia. Its path continues 22 kilometers deep inside the West Bank, encircling and annexing the settlement block of Ariel. The Ariel block splits the West Bank into almost two pieces. It creates small enclaves of isolated Palestinian communities and destroys any chance of having a future contiguous state of Palestine. The wall continues its path, encircling and annexing more settlements and more Palestinian land, while devastating many farming communities in its path. Hundreds of thousands of olive trees have been uprooted, 35,000 meters of irrigation network destroyed, more than 40 water wells lost. In the path of the wall, there were many trees, many homes, many farms, many people, and every one of them has its own story. The story of the wall is a long and painful one, and it continues on to the city most devastated by the wall, Jerusalem, and its twin city, Bethlehem. Upon completion of the wall in Jerusalem, tens of thousands of Palestinians will find themselves outside the walls of the city, cut off from their city and their livelihood. By doing this, Israel will have succeeded in changing the demographic makeup of the holy city.
It's heartbreaking what's happening in Jerusalem. You know, at the beginning of this year, it took us months to figure out how to send thousands of children to their schools and teachers to their classes. The walls zigzag in and around Jerusalem, Jews in and Palestinians out. Mothers unable to reach hospitals to deliver their babies, children unable to reach their schools, Muslims and Christians unable to reach their holy places to worship. It is a war against our existence that Israel is waging. Settlements and the wall are the tools to achieve their obsession of Judaizing the place.
Israel is using its settlements to fragment the Palestinian presence in Jerusalem, to destroy East Jerusalem as a coherent urban and economic entity, and in that way to destroy the economic heart of any Palestinian state. It's like an onion. You have concentric circles of settlements. You have huge settlement cities. You have more Israelis living today in Palestinian East Jerusalem in settlements than you have Palestinians. And here is where Jerusalem is really the heart of the struggle, in a sense. Because without Jerusalem, you don't have a viable Palestinian state. And without the settlements around Jerusalem, Israel can't really control the entire area that it wants to control forever. So Jerusalem is really the key.
The town of Jesus has its own story. Israel surrounded Bethlehem with a concrete wall, confiscating half of its land and placing that land on the Israeli side of the wall for the future expansion of the surrounding settlements.
I wonder what Jesus would say if he sees his town as a ghetto behind walls and gates, oppressing people, taking their land and depriving them of their dignity will never bring security to anybody. If I have anything to say to our neighbors and to the Jewish people, please do come back to your senses. Think of justice. Justice is not a foreign concept for Jews or for Judaism. Let my people free.
The wall snakes south of Bethlehem, encircling and annexing the huge block of settlements, Gush Etzion, and other scattered settlements along the Green Line, the border. Upon the completion of the wall, Israel will have succeeded in annexing more than 80% of its settlers and their settlements into Israel. Since 1947, Palestinians have painfully watched year after year, the partition, occupation, and annexation of their land and their country. The dream of freedom and statehood is as elusive as ever. Settlements and their master designers are confiscating the land, and ultimately, at the end of each day and each year, confiscating the human rights of millions of Palestinians. Settlements are destroying the principle that is the very foundation of the peace process: land for peace, and creating a land with no peace.
It would be very hard to argue that the two-state solution is still alive, if by that we mean a viable Palestinian state.
A continuous Palestinian state is going to be practically impossible. And this is going to be not only the end of the dream of Palestinians
How do
of a
we
state,
keep control of the
but it
country
might
but get
also
rid of the
affect
Palestinians?
the Israeli
At the end of the day,
of the survival
as
of Israel.
Prime Minister Shamir used to say, they will get used to it. They will get used to the facts on the ground.
They could confiscate our land, destroy our homes, uproot our trees, and imprison us. But they will never be able to imprison spirit seeking for freedom. Walls and ghettos will never bring peace. Justice will.
In my lifetime, if I get to live long enough, like Shimon Peres, I may be present to celebrate it. But if it won't happen in my lifetime, I'm afraid my children will have to forget about it. I spent a good number of years of my life in Israeli jails. Though I never hurt anybody, never attacked anyone, never even touched a gun. The only crime I ever committed is to dream of freedom and statehood for myself, for my kids. Now, after all those years, the state Sharon has in mind for me and my kids is a bunch of enclaves, cantons, ghettos. It is hard to be optimistic given the circumstances we live under. However, I am. You know, if 70 years ago you would have asked the Jewish people themselves if they ever thought the nightmare of Nazism would be over, they probably would have laughed at you. But Nazism was defeated. And look at Israel now, a strong state, prospering. Now I'm sure Palestinians will be no exception to that. One day we will be free, I have no doubt. Definitely we will be free.